customers.
Cool. Thank you, Sarah. And as she mentioned, thanks everybody for taking some time to join us. As we're looking at the presentation we've got for you today, really it's a couple of different things. Like most things in life, it's going to be a team effort. Joining me today, we've got Vince and Marie. Let them do their intros to themselves in just a moment. But the overall pattern, the pathway that we're looking to go through is looking a little bit to see how we got to where we are today. You know, definitions, what things have led up to the current state of AI, and then spending a fair amount of time on what is practical and reality as far as AI is considered today. And then a little bit more of looking into, as it says there, the crystal ball of what might be coming around into the future. So again, my name is Joe Eichenseer. My role in the company is I get to work with all of our trainers, consultants, specialists that do all things related to buildings, whether it's design, engineering, facilities management, or construction as we have it here today. And that means I get to have a lot of conversations with customers across the US, across Canada, to talk about things like AI and other challenges that are facing them. And I hope to be able to turn this into something that's a little bit of nuggets of information and value to everybody that's here today. Vince, for yourself, maybe.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And so for everyone here, my role at IMAGINiT, I am one of our building solutions team managers, and specifically the team that I support focuses on the construction solutions that Autodesk and IMAGINiT provide. So my part of the conversation today will be around what's available and what we've seen being leveraged in the field of construction in terms of AI. Beyond that, been with IMAGINiT for a long time, 14 years, based out of Detroit. A quick intro from me, I'll pass it off to Marie.
Thank you, Vince. So my name is Marie Williams-Bell. I am a senior applications expert on the construction team underneath Vince over here. My role in today's conversation is going to be talking about, obviously, AI and its uses as far as applications and how we can use it in our design processes.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks, Vince. And the reason we've got a group of us working with this is, as with most things in life, there's so many things going on. You couldn't get any single one of us to be able to hit on all the different types of topics that we have here and be able to speak with some level of intelligence and authority on it. So bringing in some different people from different places. Now, as far as IMAGINiT, the company is concerned, when I mentioned that I'm working with, all three of us work with customers throughout the United States and Canada, and even globally in certain places. The benefit that brings us is that we get a lot of different feedback of what people are doing in different areas, initiatives that people are going through, things that they've done successfully, things that have not gone so well. And we can do that not only with the three of us, but with all of the different people we have on staff, whether it is specifically that construction focus, or if you happen to work for a design build firm, handling the design aspects of things as well. Spread throughout to be able to leverage all of those benefits for you. In addition to that, when we're talking about AI or any other emerging or established technology, there's a double handful of other businesses that we partner up with. Obviously, the largest one, if you're here, you know of us as an Autodesk partner. Beyond that, though, whether we're talking about reality capture with Leica Geosystems, and that'll be an interesting place to see where AI might come, whether it's in the processing of point clouds or in the capturing of data when we get beyond AI into even robotics and self-guiding things there. That could be really interesting. We're not getting into that in this particular conversation, but some interesting things through there. Or if we're getting into the facilities management side of things with our partnerships with Eptura, when we're looking at AIs evaluating the past performance of buildings to project future possibilities and combine it with data sets from other buildings and climate information, and just pulling all these things together. Certainly it's a really, really interesting time that we're coming through, but we can leverage all of these different partnerships to help inform our customers with what's happening, where things are going. So a lot of different fun things there that are all piling into this solution that we'll have to offer. Now, beyond where we are as far as Joe, Vince, and Marie and who IMAGINiT is as a company, one of the first things we really need to do in here is make sure we're working off the same operating definition of artificial intelligence. One of the things that might just happen to be a repeated theme through here is that there's a lot of things that'll be going on where people are saying this is AI. Have we talked about our AI initiative? There was a fun video that Vince had turned me on to, maybe a week or two back. It was, I believe, a Google event where somebody had put a mashup together of all the times that somebody on stage said AI, and it was like, I don't know, 5 minutes, something long like that, of just people saying AI, 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 AI. And while that's a great buzzword for the things that are out there, there's going to be the practical reality of, well, what's truly artificial intelligence, or what is something that's really, we'll call it more machine learning or generative design. It's maybe, we could call it a subset of artificial intelligence, but it's not the real big thing that everybody's assuming AI to be. It's not that yet. We're getting there, but we're making our way in that direction. And what's reality and what's vaporware, smoke and mirrors, future possibilities, there's a lot that's feeding into this system. And one of the things we'll have to do, and one of the things we'll try to strive to do during this presentation, is to make sure that we're separating fiction from today's reality. And by fiction, it's not to say that it never will happen, it's just a future state that we're working toward versus today's reality. What is going to be something that we can term as being artificial intelligence in the way that people traditionally think of it versus machine learning or generative design and bulk processing, evaluation of data, things along those lines. So trying to keep that separated. This is a big issue because as we're looking at it related to buildings, we've seen these numbers or some version of these numbers many, many, many times, but it all comes back to there's a lot of waste that happens in construction. There's a lot of data loss that happens at different times. And anything we can do that will allow us to become more efficient, more effective, will end up being a really good thing, no matter where it's coming from. And we are going to strive to make up for that. Now, hopefully, that $280 billion in rework or the 96% of data, whatever, doesn't come back and say we're just doing construction cheaper. Hopefully, this also means that there's some better profit lines coming from this. So the idea that AI and all of its subcomponents will come through and allow us to become more efficient, more profitable as an individual company, as an industry, and also to be making better buildings, all of the above. So that's our history of what and why. Now, if we pull that over to a little bit about just the IMAGINiT side of that conversation, the idea of automation and machine learning, generative design, and things like that all comes back through a lot of different things that are based off of data and rules. So if we go into the Wayback Machine and take a look at some of the things that IMAGINiT has done, I pulled from a presentation we did, I think this was like 15, maybe 18 years ago. As IMAGINiT, we had built a tool for a playground company. This is intentionally a bit pixelated for what we have, that would allow people to pick from a predefined set of parts. And based off of those parts, we built in certain rules that say, if you drop in this thing, then you also must have these other things. And those other items are the only items that can be attached to it. So we started building in some different rules to help out with that design. It was interactive with the user, but we were starting to build in some, we'll say, intelligence. It's not AI, I'm not going there, but we were building intelligence into these design systems, which would then turn into 3D components. Again, if we're looking at this as being, well over a decade ago, this was fairly revolutionary at its time, and turning that into bill of materials. All of this coming from adding intelligence to design applications. And this was all running on an end user desktop. It was configurable, but we set up these rules that say, here are the guideposts, the guide rails that you can design within, and building that interactive machine assisted design process. From the desktop, taking that to the next side. So a little bit more recently here, similar types of things where if we're looking at the idea of AI, it's all about processing large amounts of data. And when we're processing large amounts of data, we're typically talking about somebody else's server system, somebody else's cloud, whether we're talking about the GPTs of the world or just even Amazon AWS or Azure or whatever. This type of thing, we did the similar kind of concept, but we're building it off of Forge so that we were able to get it into a browser. So we're not tied down to the desktop now. We can do this design in the field interactive with other people. Again, examples of the types of things that are leading our way into this world of AI. So building the different parts based off of those parts, click on an icon that'll tell you what you can place next to it, so that similar to before, when we're done, we'll have a 3D model. The graphics have improved immensely from well over a decade ago. The same type of thing is happening. If you do this, you must have that, preventing people from making mistakes, keeping the data consistent between all these different stages of design into construction and beyond. So all those things that we're talking about are part of this. These types of tools, whether we're talking about construction documents or the data behind it, are all the foundational elements of what allows us to move in the direction of AI. And that can't be underemphasized. It shouldn't be underemphasized. The idea that data is a foundational element for everything that we'll do in an AI environment is key. It's critical. And not just the data, but building in some different rules for how do we use that data. If I'm talking to architects or engineers, I'll throw in something like this, because the architects, the designers of the world, not just architects, people that do design, the idea of rules is kind of bad. If we're talking about that from a construction standpoint, rules tend to be pretty good. They help keep us safe. They help keep, well, if you want to go to the extreme end, they help keep people alive. But if we're looking at this, instead of calling it rules, maybe we call it guidelines. So the foundational element for this is the guidelines. If we turn this into a comparison to Chat GPT, Gemini, Grok, just all these different large language models, there's some underpinning rules of you're allowed to chat back and say certain things. You're not allowed to chat back and say other things. You're not allowed to give people recipes for stuff they shouldn't be making. So instead of rules, we'll call them guidelines. And those guidelines allow us to be creative within this scope of what's possible. So from a design standpoint, I went into a stable diffusion model, an image generator, and said, hey, you can see it there in italics, make me a floor plan of an apartment. And this is one of the images that I got. And it's a bit curious, I suppose. There's a door hanging out here that's doing who knows what. We've got some interesting spaces that'd be really difficult, I imagine, to, I don't know, maybe this is a pantry. I'm not sure what's going on in different places, but it's a little bit curious. This is the idea of data. It needs more information, probably a better description than what I gave it, but it gives me an idea of where are these AIs getting creative with what's going on. If you, as somebody as a construction professional, are doing something in the early stages, helping out as an assist on a project, you're getting some stuff like this. Yeah, hey, good for inspiration, but it's not making the models for us. So that's one of the key things that we'll have to look at as it stands today. Future state's going to be something else, but as it stands today, the AIs, the image generators, the interactive things that we've got are not making these floor plans for us. If I took that same prompt and did it again last month, it was based off of I believe this one was, yeah, it was an updated source file that it used as a data set for building out some images. Here's a quad of things that were there. Is it getting better? It looks a little bit better. Looks a little bit more realistic for a floor plan. But if you look at any of these things, there's still a fair number of issues. And we're not going to go into all those, but it's just an idea of it is getting better from the last picture to where we are here, incrementally better. It's going to keep on getting better as the different systems, as these machine environments continue to learn from the data sets that we provide. And it's up to the big picture of us, whether you're talking about data scientists or the actual people that are here watching this presentation now or the recording of it later, providing information to these AIs, for lack of better words, to give them the information they need to be able to tell what is good, what is bad. Because if looking at the timeline for things, this is not a new concept. And you may have seen or heard about different things before. The idea of BIM started way before Revit ever came to the scene. The idea of AI was being thought about and worked on, in little skunkworks factories or whatever else, long before Chat GPT came around and just blew the doors open on what's possible and what's happening out here. From an Autodesk specific standpoint, if we take a look at them and how their business lines up with some of these things, we don't have specific dates here. These are kind of ranges, a general idea of how a timeline is going. Autodesk has been doing different things that can be in some fashion or another classified as AI for quite some time. Whether we're talking about it as generative design, we'll talk about some of those things, or if we're talking about it and related to analysis of documentation or things going into the forward. Again, we'll continue talking about them as they're coming along, but these are all the things that have led us to where we are today. It started with a bunch of really smart people thinking about how can we get a computer to act more like a human brain. The internet allowing access to greater and greater sets of resources, going from what was mainframes to PCs and now back to cloud. A lot of really exciting things happening that we need to be cautious with and be thinking about, but things that we can take into the next step. So as we're looking at that, and that's the big background of what's leading us to where we are here today, let me turn this over to Marie and talk about things a little more real. Sure.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the current and future kind of forms of AI that we have right now. The first is going to be generative AI. So this is AI that creates new content for you. That could be anything from, generative design using Dynamo to Chat GPT is considered a generative AI as well. I always feel like generative AI kind of leads into co-creation AI, which is I'm having this thing generate something for me, but then I'm providing feedback and it's updating and it's making changes to what has been generated. Then we also have informative AI, which is going to look at the info that is available and it's going to provide you with more information. And then lastly, we have predictive AI, which is used for predicting future events based on information from past events. So it will analyze historic events and kind of tell you what it thinks is going to happen and start predicting patterns and telling you what it believes is going to happen in the future. You can go to the next slide. There we go. So Autodesk's AI mission. As the trusted technology partner for design and make worldwide, Autodesk has a mandate to harness the power of AI on behalf of our customers and a duty to do so responsibly. So what this means is that they're not just generating AI things and just putting them out there for you. They're actually making sure that they're working properly and that they are useful tools for you to use, and they're not going to be wasting your time or giving you bad results that you can't actually use. So what can AI do for you? We have analyzing. So this can reveal actionable insights from data. So it'll look at what's happening and tell you what you need to do in order for you to complete your project. It can reduce repetitive work. This is one of my favorite things. I hate repetitive tasks. So I love that AI can now kind of reduce repetitive tasks for you and streamline your processes and workflows. And then it can also augment. So one of the biggest concerns around AI is that, it's doing things that humans should be doing, but in reality, AI can really enhance your creativity and help you explore new things that maybe you've never even thought of. So you can use AI to, generate new ideas, and then it can take you in a completely different direction that maybe you never would have gone on your own. So let's talk about some of the capabilities of the Autodesk products that they have out there. We've got Forma, and we have rapid operational energy analysis. And the key word in this topic here is rapid. So what's great about this is that you are now able to kind of do like real-time energy analysis while you're working. So as you're making design changes, you're actually seeing how it's affecting the energy model of your building, and you can act accordingly. What's great about this is not only is it doing the analysis for you, but it's also kind of helping you see how different design things can change how the energy works. This is going to improve your sustainability outcomes. It's going to help, help you work more efficiently, and again, offload some of those repetitive tasks. And at the end of the day, you're going to be seeing the results of those decisions earlier on in your design phases, and it's going to help save time and money throughout your project. And then we also have Dynamo. So Dynamo was one of the first things that we kind of started talking about. We do have generative design in Dynamo. Now we also have recommended nodes in Dynamo. By toggling on the node autocomplete feature, Dynamo is now going to start recommending nodes for you to use in your new script as you're working. So for those of you who use Dynamo, you know that there are a ton of nodes out there. A lot of them can look very similar. There's a huge library, which is awesome. But when you're building a script that's especially different from maybe something you've built before, it can be difficult to figure out which nodes you want to use. This new feature, recommended nodes, is now going to provide you with a list of recommended nodes based on what it's seeing happening in your script, and help you pick your nodes and provide more meaningful suggestions. Again, this is machine learning, so the more it gets used, the more it's going to be able to provide better suggestions. But at the end of the day, this is going to increase your efficiency in building your visual program. So in a way, I kind of like to think of this as Dynamo for Dynamo.
And to the point that you made a little bit before, this is one of those places where we're not looking at AI taking over the job of somebody that was programming in Dynamo, or somebody that is doing some level of early design analysis. Again, for the crowd here, perhaps those that are doing design build type of work, but I don't know, it's almost like at co-create level, where it's working with you to make you more efficient, so you can spend more time making it better, not trying to search out what node you want to bring in. Agree?
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what I think.
Cool. So going from design side a little bit, if we make our step to the next level, Vince, some things on ACC.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So when we're moving from the design phase into construction, and I kind of want to get back to one of the, you don't need to show it, Joe, but one of the previous slides that was brought up, and Marie talked about kind of the different levels of AI. So really early on, I think we're really tapping into the analysis tools and things that can help us around design. And when we get into construction, we're working with more of the AI features that are really the informational and then the predictive nature of IQ. So what we've seen in the Autodesk Construction Cloud, there's a tool, or there's an embedded sort of intelligence AI tool called Construction IQ in the ACC. And the purpose of Construction IQ is to prevent or provide the end user information, and then also to have some type of predictive analysis to say, hey, based on historical data, we realize that there are a lot of things that are overdue here. There are certain types of issues with certain root causes, and it's going to capture in a very consumable way for their user to really identify those things that are actual high risk elements within their projects. So I know one thing that we probably all struggle with is time management and being able to mentally sort through or prioritize things that are the high risk items versus medium risk versus low risk. And we tend to get our time a little bit jumbled up. Maybe we're spending too much time on things that, well, right now in the project aren't really a high risk factor. And we're wasting that valuable time dealing with a low priority where we should be spending it in areas of high risk. So with Construction IQ, this gives both executive level, so there are Construction IQ capabilities at the account level for all of your projects. So really a tool that an executive level member or someone high up in technology can review to get an overview of all project risk that you're managing. But then at a project level, maybe project executives, project managers, they have dashboards and reporting via this Construction IQ to really identify those key risk areas within their particular projects. And what I feel like this really helps us with in construction, there are so many things that are happening, so much communication, so many people that are working on the job site and communicating information back to the project. It's overwhelming for a project manager to have to review reports in depth daily, weekly, and spend enough time to really just sit there and review information to make proper judgment calls and make sure that the construction timeline is correct and we're on task or we're on budget. So saving someone a lot of time, we have these little cards that will identify to us where those critical items are. And as we click through those, we get to a level of granularity that really can pinpoint, okay, I need this information from this contractor immediately so that I can resolve this before it becomes a bigger problem on our job site. And that's really the intent of and the idea behind Construction IQ. It's gathering all of those different inputs from all over the project, and it's summarizing them in a very consumable and manageable form so that someone that is managing that project or leading that project can really get to the root of the problem and resolve it before it becomes, you know, a cost impact to the project or a schedule impact to the project. So that's the idea behind Construction IQ. It's been around for a number of years now, but it is getting better and better, especially with updates and enhancements to the Autodesk Construction Cloud, both on the design side and the construction side. So let's see. Yeah, so Joe, next slide, thank you. Another feature of AI, this might be a very simple form, but it's definitely beneficial. Within Autodesk Build, if we capture photos in the field or upload photos from maybe that someone has sent us into our projects, there is an auto tagging mechanism. So it actually reads your images that you're uploading or you're taking in your project, and it will auto tag it with things like pipe or plumbing fixture or any number of different kind of auto-generated tags that it can pull from the image. From there, we're able to then search our library of photos in the project. So if you just wanted to pull up a screenshot of all of your concrete formwork, you type in formwork. Based on these auto tags that are generated from the photos taken in the field, you know, it has historic data, image data that knows what pipes look like, that knows what construction form or concrete formwork looks like, and it will gather those auto tags. So instead of someone having to sit there and manually tag their photos, which you can still do, so you can add your own tags to your photos, but the auto tagging can save someone a lot of time if it's already gathering a lot of the keywords and the key elements that are present within that image. And that at this bullet point, sorry, Joe, back up one. The bullet point at the bottom there. So we have seen customers leaning on auto tagging to do progress tracking within the projects, dealing with claims and disputes. So, you know, pull up all of the electrical conduit photos, progress photos from the project. It can gather all of those in one quick search. And then things like, you know, releasing payments, approving handover, all of that can be prompted by the information associated to the photos, or at least provide additional backing to anything that might be in litigation or have to report certain information from the project. Cool. Thank you, Joe. All right. And then with AutoSpecs. So AutoSpecs is now integrated directly into the ACC. So it used to be a pipe product. Well, still is a pipe product technically, but it is one of their products that has been integrated directly into ACC. And what AutoSpecs does is it allows us to upload our specifications for our projects, and it does optical character recognition through the PDF to start pulling submittal information from your spec directly. When it goes through that OCR process, it does a really good job of identifying things like spec section and submittal types like product data, O&M manual requirements, warranty information. And inside the pipe tool, when we do that initial OCR, there's also an AI tool that can be turned on and activated. So maybe in certain sections, if we're missing something that if pipe has in its own database that the AI runs off of, if it says, you know, typically within this section of a spec, we would also have XYZ submittals, it's going to start to create suggested submittals, maybe things that were either missed in the spec or via the OCR, it just didn't pick them up in the first place. So based on that, I'll call it sort of machine learning, but it is generative AI. It will start to guide the process of generating your submittals from the spec that's being provided to the GC via design teams, architects. And again, the idea here is instead of reading through 2,000 pages of spec, you're making sure that you have someone that's on that and highlighting the spec. This will do a very good job of sorting, bookmarking, and organizing the specification. But then due to this being integrated into Autodesk Build, we can actually move that submittal registry, smart registry from AutoSpecs directly into Autodesk Build, ultimately saving teams hundreds of hours, tons of time in the project in processing that information. And then I think this is the last one for the construction side, but another product that we feature that has artificial intelligence built into it is Autodesk Takeoff. So with Autodesk Takeoff, if you're familiar with any type of quantity takeoff tool, we're generally manually counting symbols and drawing lines to say how much material is present within any individual drawing. Well, one of the AI features of Takeoff is that it will start to learn based on you identifying different symbols. So in this little screenshot is showing supply diffusers and returns, return diffusers. So it will start to learn those symbols that are being used in the drawings, and then it will automatically detect all of the supply and return diffusers and start to give you your quantity takeoffs just based on that, the similar types of symbols. So diffusers generally, or supply is generally a box with an X. Maybe we go through the process of manually identifying a few of those. There is an AI tool in Takeoff that will say, hey, we're seeing that this thing that has a box with an X, you're identifying that as a supply diffuser. Let's go ahead and run through the entire document set or all of the models and pull all of that information for your Takeoff. So might seem like a simple task, but again, maybe some of the uses or a lot of the uses for AI is just offloading some of those really repetitive tasks that we are tasked to do with, and letting it do some of the work for us. Also, avoiding manual errors. Maybe I didn't see that symbol in that corner and I missed my quantity takeoff by 1 because it was a long day and I just happened to miss it. Well, AI is going to automatically find those mistakes or find those things for us. I'm still reluctant to trust everything that it does, so I would review it. But I think to Marie's point earlier, maybe we start with a baseline, and that baseline saves us a lot of time. And now, instead of spending all of the time and going through several or many documents. Now I'm simply doing a quick red line and reviewing that it did capture everything that it was supposed to. So definitely spending less time in the review than it would take me in doing the takeoff manually from start to finish.
And to reinforce what you were saying here, and also through what Marie had in hers, this is all stuff that exists today. So this is we'll call it the current state of AI. So anybody here, if your manager or your customer, somebody's saying, you guys do AI, there's an echo in here on my side. But if it's saying, do you guys do AI, you can come back and say, yeah, we are using AI-based tools. We are doing things in this way. We're talking about subsets of it. So it's not saying, hey, computer, make my building, but you're using it as a tool in these categories of AI that are available to you today. So there is an initiative, there are tools that you can be using today, let alone what the future might have. So that's my only color commentary for that one, leading into your final bit, Vince, on.
Yeah. So for all different things that we've covered so far, and Joe, you mentioned this at the beginning of the presentation, data is the backbone for AI to function. So if we don't have some type of database or repository of information for the AI to work off of, or maybe it's a limited data set for AI to work off of, then the results are going to be poor, or they're going to be limited. So through these tools, and really with all of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, we are constantly building on a database of information, whether that's project-centric or account-centric. The more that we're utilizing the tools properly and tying things like issues to RFIs and then RFIs to change orders, that's where you're really going to get that good level of construction IQ that will be predictive to tell you, hey, we know that from this type of RFI in your system, it's going to have a cost impact to the project. Well, we wouldn't have that information unless your teams are actually vetting and making sure that they're putting in the proper inputs for it to read that, for it to provide that level of reporting. So we really emphasize when we're doing implementations around the Autodesk Construction Cloud that you should come up with a good standard operating procedure, that you should not be taking shortcuts if you intend to actually utilize some of this artificial intelligence. If you do start taking shortcuts, then obviously the reporting is not going to be as beneficial to you as it would be if you're actively using the tools the way that they should be used and tying references to different items. So that's just one simple example around what I've seen in supporting construction. But I know from my experience in using non-Autodesk AI tools like Midjourney or ChatGPT, those have very robust databases. Midjourney having basically the entire internet of images plus all of the images that are generated from Midjourney to create that database. So something that Joe is using with his space layout anecdote, this is exponentially, these databases are growing based on the information that's being processed from users that are utilizing AI. So the more that we're actually adding intelligent information into our projects, the more intelligent and more accurate AI becomes. So exponentially, maybe to some level of being scary, but what we've seen in the last 2 years of AI has started to really take off. And I mean, if you guys have seen anything from Journey with the images that it's able to create, or any of these image generating AIs, like the realism and the accuracy is incredible. And it's getting to the point where now we're able to create actual videos and animations that are completely AI, which maybe that's a scary part, but it's exponential. So I'll leave it at that. Pass the ball back over to you, Joe, to take us home.
Cool, thanks. Well, as we're looking at what's here with AI and where things are, where they're going, things like that. There's even the spot, we don't have a slide for it here, but Marie pointed out to me, it's a few weeks ago now, that Autodesk had announced that they're working on, so this is nothing that we have any access to right now, but they're working on a tool that will start generating 3D shapes based off of text input. So it's not just a 2D Mid-Journey style image, but a full-on 3D object. So as those types of things are coming around, that'll be really interesting. Now, how much of that's going to be a benefit towards more of the media and entertainment folks, or something that's helping out with design, or you know, the art side of it all, who knows? But there's a lot of really cool, interesting things that are happening. The tools today, the tools of the future, where it's going, anybody's guess. But there's a lot of interesting things with that, like surveys. Who doesn't like a good survey? Like this one. Accenture did one and said 71% profit increase using AI in the next decade. You know, that's a big enough number that it, you know, like the emoji in the corner, it just makes you wonder, really? 71% profit increase? That's massive. And I don't have the data behind this to be able to see exactly where it would be coming from, but you can see a breakdown of different areas where they think it would be, you know, the amount of potential profit increase that would come around based off different divisions. But even if they're wrong, and they're off by an order of magnitude, if you could turn around and say, hey, by using AI, like order of magnitude, we could be 20% increase in profit. I was like, heck yeah, everybody's jumping on that one. So it's really intriguing and worth being able to keep track of. But separating the future state from where it is today. Yeah, case in point, we'll keep on throwing GPT out there because they're the most uh, widely recognized chatbot thing that exists. But they had a presentation, a release that they talked about their new model and all the different things you can do with the model. Probably a good half to 3/4 of what they showed during that presentation were things that even still today aren't released to the public. The model, the 4.0 model that they have is largely available, but some of the interactive capabilities that they had aren't there for everybody yet. So a lot of things that you'll be hearing from people are going to be, hey, this is what we're working on and what you'll see soon, whatever that means. They're great, wonderful, awesome things, but we need to temper it with what's reality today. And it has a different impact when we're talking about theoretical science versus building a building. Now, if we're talking about it from the building a building side of things, we're getting into the what would happen if. And I can specifically say, based off of things that we'll say Autodesk has said publicly, these that we're seeing on the right-hand side are items that Autodesk is working on today to be building into the software. I mean, the natural language into a Jarvis type of thing, whatever. But getting more insights, if we could say, here's all of my documents in a set, hey, Autodesk Construction Cloud, give me a list of all PDF documents that reference this piece of equipment, whether it's a floor plan elevation, section, reflected ceiling plan, spec, photograph, digging through it all for you. It's your personalized assistant. And a lot of what, you know, the Googles, Microsofts, GPTs, X's of the world will talk about these AIs as becoming your personal assistant. So it's, as everybody's been saying here, not with the idea of taking away your job, but allowing you to be more effective, more efficient at your job by being that artificially intelligent personal assistant. A lot of really interesting, exciting things that are actively being worked on today. And based off of that, gets you to the next level of what if. These might be a little bit further out. There's some that might be a little bit more made up, but I think these are all in that world of reality, being able to go through and say, hey, prioritize my clashes. Now, how does it get to that? How does it know which clashes are more important than others? Well, it does that by gathering data over time. Somewhere, somehow, at least on these initial pieces, we have to have the intelligent human being that's going through and saying, this is an important clash, that's not an important clash. And classifying things as we're going through, letting the AI learn from those classifications of this is good, this is bad, get it to some level of either binary good bad or some sort of spectrum of this is it's moderately important, whatever. But we've got to be able to give it the good data and let it learn from that. And then where the AI really starts to come in play is where it is able to make intelligent and correct logical jumps of, well, you said this type of clash was important, critical, severe. Here's another clash that's not exactly what you said, but it's really close. So I'm going to go ahead and lean it into that severity high category because it's similar enough based off of what you said was good, bad, indifferent, whatever. So there's a lot of learning to be done. As been said, though, this learning is happening at an increasingly rapid rate. Different models are being trained on a regular basis over and over and over again. Scan through all of my documents and find where there's an inconsistency across my specs. That'd be a good thing to find. Whether you're looking for a justification for what you needs to be a change order, or you're just trying to ferret out your risk that's involved with this particular project. So from an Autodesk side, those are some things that are working on, some possibilities that we could see it going to in the future. Now, how soon? Anybody's guess for a timeline. We could pull an Elon Musk and say it'll be here next year, and then it's really about 2 to 3 years out because we're just overexcited about it, whatever it needs to be. But it's somewhere out there. It is coming along its way. If we take it to the next level from an IMAGINiT standpoint, building on that idea of data is the backbone, we've got a product called Clarity that works with Revit files, also with AutoCAD, but for the sake of what we're having here, it's really just Revit is what matters. We can do things like all the different boxes you see here, but as it relates to AI, one of the key parts that we do is we can pull all of the data out of a Revit file and pull it into a Microsoft SQL database. Now that it's in a SQL database, it's something that is much more easily accessible, that we can take a look at the data and say, well, okay, across all of my different buildings that I have in our portfolio, what is the range of square footage that we have for executive offices? I'm just making something up here. And in those executive offices, what types of furniture, fixture, equipment did we have sitting in there? So we can make comparisons to the different buildings, and then from that, have the human side of it to determine, well, this was a good project, that was a bad project. This is a project where everybody loves being in the building. Here's a project where everybody's kind of meh about it. So we can use that to help analyze design or profitability based off of some of these different things. But we can pull that data into a much more easily accessible and analyzable format of SQL. So some really cool things there. So if that's all of the possibilities of what's today, what's going into the future, what we can do now, the different ways that people are leveraging subsets of AI, machine learning, generative design, and so on, and our path toward full AGI, the question comes back to say, where do you want to be? As we're looking at this is just a typical adoption of, take your pick, adoption of technology, adoption of new knowledge, adoption of whatever. It's an adoption life cycle. You'll have the people early on that are grabbing things and running with it, and you've got people that are just waiting until every single possible kink has been worked out and there's no other choice but to go to it because you can't do it anymore. The laggards, holding on to your cars that used leaded gasoline until there was no choice, and you have to swap parts out to be able to use the unleaded gasoline, which is the only type we can get now. That type of thing, whatever it might happen to be. I'll argue that as we're looking at it today, We are absolutely still in this early leading, bleeding edge of where software and technology is. The question becomes, for you as a person, for you as a company, do you want to be actively engaged at this leading, bleeding, innovative edge? Or do you want to just let's wait for the first service pack to come out and deal with things a little bit later on, become an early adopter? If that's the case, where you're just seeing yourself as an early adopter, not an innovator side of things, I would absolutely say keep aware of everything that's going on. Be part of webcasts like this to see what's practical reality today and what people are prognosticating for the future to come around. Be aware of all these items so that when they do get to a spot of being practical and useful to you, you know about it, you can take advantage of it. You're not working from a point of ignorance. Your presence here watching this presentation, being a part of this presentation, or watching a video later is evidence that you're already in that spot, which is a great, great thing. Even if you're just going to take a late majority, you're going to wait for a while longer, being aware of these things is super, super important. Which then turns around to say, if you've got all these tools, if you already are using to some degree or another Autodesk Construction Cloud, if you're a design build firm and you do get involved with some early on heating and cooling analysis of your buildings, different bits of design analytics, of getting into generative design to know what's the best sort of layout we'll have for rooms or offices or tables within this space, or whatever the case might be, make sure you know at least a little bit about the tools that you already have and the category of AI that they would fall into. So when you're talking to somebody and they say, hey, are we doing anything with AI? You can give that correct, informed feedback of, yes, we do, and here's how, here's why, or yeah, we're using a subset of it, just this generative design piece. So people know where you sit, you know where you sit, and you're positioning yourself, you're positioning your company for what comes next, whether you see yourself as an innovator, an early adopter, or you're just in that bulk that'll be a little bit later. Now, is that a little bit later next year, 2 years out? I'm not going to hazard to guess. Nobody really knows, but it's stay informed with these things and use the ones that you have, or become aware in a more detailed way about the tools that you already have access to today that can lead you to an understanding of the direction that AI is going for our industry. With that, I will say thank you very much, everybody, for your time that you've had with us today. If you've got any questions, let's go ahead and start typing them into that Q&A panel that we've got inside the meeting center. And appreciate all your time. Hopefully you got something out of this to help guide yourself, help guide your firm in the direction you're going to take with AI.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Joe and Vince and Marie. That was super interesting. We are going to wrap up for the day. I don't see any questions in the questions panel. Joe, is that what you're seeing too?
I do not see any questions yet. We'll stall for a little while in case somebody is furiously typing in the back end. I will say, though, if something comes around that you're thinking of later on, please, please, please just reach out to us, reach out to your account rep, and let's have that conversation. And that being happening, there was a question that came, are there any plans to integrate or enable Microsoft Copilot? I'll have to say that I'm not aware of anything specifically with Copilot, which, for those that don't know, is a Microsoft licensed version of ChatGPT. I know that Autodesk is working on things, what engine or other aspects they have running in the background to drive it. I can't say whether it's GPT, Grok, I don't know how you pronounce it, the X one, or different learning models that are in the open source world. I play around with some open source language models, and it's all fun. I can't say what they've got in the background specifically. And then there's a second question. This one will be for you, which is, will the video be sent soon? So Sarah, what's your typical turnaround?
Yeah, so the recording will be sent out with some additional information included sometime next week. Looks like it's scheduled for next Friday. So just be on the lookout for that in your inbox.
Awesome. Not seeing any other questions, I'll just repeat myself again. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your time and attention.
Thanks, everyone.